Good evening. I am so excited for all my viewers tuning in tonight and the ones that could not make it. I hope that you watched my video and the show because we have Congressman Trone on the show, and I'm so delighted and excited that you are here today. And we're going to get into some questions. And you've been doing some great things in DC. I've heard about the great work you've been doing, and I hope that you're going to talk about that tonight. And I've got this new computer, Congressman Trone, so I'm just trying to get used to it. So, and position myself right. But I'm so excited, and you are running. Are you going to put your name in hat to run again this election in 2022? Is that what your plans are? Because we do have a lot of congressmen and congresswomen retiring and not putting their name back in the hat. So, is your plan to go for re-election?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Tara. Well, first of all, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me on and inviting me into your beautiful home. I mean, wow, that fireplace is magnificent. I mean, great. Love it. But no, I plan to 100% running. I'm going to file on Friday, so it'll be official, but we're definitely coming back. But you're right. About 26 Democrats have left. It's crazy.
I'm a little scared about that, right? Like before, I mean, I'm frightened that how that looks for us in the Democratic Party. I have told a lot of people that it's really important that we take the 2022 elections very seriously because that's going to set the tone for 2024. So I hope that we can rally up and get behind great people like yourself and other ones. So speaking of great people like you, Congressman Trone, could you tell us the three success that you have accomplished since you've been a congressman? Because I know I voted for you in District 6. So so what have you been successful in? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think when we look at sort of big picture pieces, as you know, we're focused on addiction, mental health, and criminal justice reform. Those are our big three missions, and we stay very focused. But as far as really big successes, yes, we got two bills signed by President Biden already, one on addiction, one on mental health. But I think the big successes, Carolyn, would be the infrastructure bill. I mean, in my lifetime and your lifetime, we've never had a $1 trillion infrastructure bill passed. I mean, it's going to make monumental changes on broadband, which is so desperately needed in Frederick County, many areas like up in Thurmont and those areas, all through Washington County. We have broadband failure. It's hurting our kids. It's hurting telework, telemedicine. So that infrastructure bill would be number one issue, I think, getting that enacted into law. The other big push I've worked on is getting my bipartisan addiction and mental health task force up and running. We've got now, and I'm co-chair, I founded it with 140 members, two parties. We've got 70 bills now that we're working our way through, all bipartisan, all on addiction and mental health. And I'll tell you, our country right now with COVID, it's a train wreck. But behind COVID, once we get ahead, then we got to move on to addiction and mental health. And Speaker Pelosi, President Biden, they're very committed to this. They see what COVID has done to exacerbate and make so much worse the mental health crisis and the addiction crisis, we have throughout America. 100,000 Americans, died in the last 12 months from overdoses. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, the total loss, Carolyn, of Americans since 2000 to overdoses is now over 800,000, very similar to the number that we've lost for COVID. So it's absolutely mind-boggling. And, we've got some really great legislation, got 70 bills. I said 15 of those are my bills that we wrote. Our CARES bill, CARES 3.0, major changes in mental health in America, and trying to remove the stigma and prevention. So those are big issues. But the third thing I want to mention is what President Obama told us early on. also focus on your district. If you don't take care of your district, if you're
Mm-hmm.
not present, if you're not in Frederick, Hagerstown, Garrett, all those counties on an ongoing basis to listen, talk to your constituents,
Mm-hmm.
hear what's not working, that's really important. And we've responded to over 16,000 constituent requests in 2021, which
Good for
is
you.
mind-blowing. But
Yeah.
how it's helping each individual person get their unemployment when they
Mm-hmm.
couldn't get it done with the Department of Labor in Annapolis. How we
Yeah.
go to bat for them, go to
Yeah.
bat to helping their vets, their problem on their VA.
Yeah.
But is customer service,
Yeah.
which as a businessman, I really get that as a retailer. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
take care of your customer, you're not going to have a customer.
Right.
And
You're exactly right.
you're my customer. I work for you. I
Mm-hmm.
work for you every day, and so I've got to make sure I do that and really focus on it.
Well,
Those are the big issues.
I thank you for that, because I know when you talk about mental health and how COVID has definitely affected mental health and substance abuse. I know personally myself, when I work in Baltimore with the police department, and we were working on those things with mental health, and it was mayhem, right? Because they couldn't get their treatment, they couldn't go in to see their parole officers, they couldn't all those things were shut down. So guess what happens? People start to get unstable, and so it's really important that we try to find some solutions for that after COVID, right? And I'm glad that you are on that task force, making sure that we provide wraparound services. That is so important for mental health in 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 substance abuse and things like that. It goes hand in hand. I tell a lot of people that, people just don't want to wake up and use drugs, right? Like they all like it, they have a mental health issue, they use drugs, and then homeless and survival, it all goes hand in hand. So I'm glad that you are working on that. And especially with the infrastructure bill, yes, that is so important in the broadband. But in Washington County, people in the county area do not have good broadband, and so I'm excited about you working on that. So you made some great points and just keeping up the great work, right? So I know the three successes that you have talked about, but there are also some barriers. I mean, you guys have been having a hard time in DC with I'm not going to say any names of who it is, but we're just going to say that you guys have been having a hard time getting things to find some agreement on what needs to happen. So what kind of barriers have you been facing, and what was your successes in your top barriers? And if you were successful in winning two elections, what was your goal to conquer those barriers?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But we got to again think back and put it in proportion. How awesome is it right now today that we control the House? So we're fighting in the Senate,
Yeah.
and we have the White House, and you know who
Yeah.
is friggin' gone. He is gone.
Yeah.
He can never come back.
No.
He can
Ever.
never, ever, ever come back. So I'm always a glass, it's 3/4 full. And to having beat you know who and getting him now under investigation with the January
Mm-hmm.
6th committee
Mm-hmm.
and gets what he deserves, that's such a great thing. But you're right, voting rights has got to be front and center.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what they're doing to attack our voting rights, ever since the Supreme Court, ruled in the Shelby case and decimated the 1965 Voting Rights Act, we've been fighting a slow attrition all through the southern states, Texas, Florida, against the fundamental right to vote,
Mm-hmm.
which keeps, America is to who we are. So a lot of barrier there. And, all we can hope and pray is that this new bill, which I like to call the Manchin bill, because Manchin, helped write it. He put his name on it. And while there's the John Lewis Voting Act, and I love John Lewis. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
went to Selma with John twice. And man, the first day we were elected and we were, in training, I was with my wife and I saw John Lewis on the other side of the room. and we were all kind of like nervous freshmen. And I said to my wife, I said, let's go get our picture right now with John Lewis. And she and I got up. We walked over to Mr. Lewis and said, can we have our picture taken with you, sir?
Yeah.
And he said, of course.
Yeah.
He's so gracious, so kind.
Mm-hmm.
And after I did that, it's like everybody raced over to get their picture with John. And so we got to get, it's really the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and HR 1, but we'll call it the Manchin Act, to appeal to one individual that he and Miss Cinema have got to get on board. We've got to throw the filibuster in the garbage can where it belongs, and we've got to pass a Voting Rights Act. And you know what Cinema said yesterday was so disheartening and disappointing.
Yeah.
I mean, the president has gone to Georgia. He went to the Senate yesterday, and I mean, he is with us. The filibuster has to go. And so that's really frustrating. And I'm going to continue to do my small part to advocate, for the Manchin Act, which incorporates the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, of course. But that's the biggest one that's struggling. Second area, I feel a lot of frustration is in criminal justice reform. And, you know that I've been very involved with the American Civil Liberties Union for decades. And, my wife and I set up in New York through our foundation, the Trone Center for Justice and Equality. So all the ACLU voting rights, criminal justice work, all the criminal justice work comes through the Trone Center. And, we've got to change what's happening in a systemically racist criminal justice system. And that, it's frustrating. It's hard to get on the other side of the aisle folks to come on board sometimes, but we're making some headway. We've got a couple good bills. Our Fresh Start Act, bipartisan again. It's how we clean off people's records. Everyone makes mistakes. I made them. You've made them. But once you've made a mistake and you paid that price, I'm all about second chances. And that's what America is about, is second chances. So we've got to get the Fresh Start Act through. And I think that's something that's, we've got bipartisan support now. We got to get through the House and the Senate. That's been frustrating. We want to create an opportunity pipeline. I've been working with the Bureau of Prisons, and I recommended the head of the Bureau of Prisons be fired in testimony when I questioned him at the Appropriations Committee. And finally, he's gone.
Good.
Within the last 2 weeks, he's gone. We'll bring a new director in for BOP. And we've been working with them, how we get private enterprise, big companies, forward-leaning companies like JP Morgan, who said they're going to hire 10% of their hires each year to be returning citizens. Companies like my company, I've hired over 500 returning citizens. How we can get UPS, we can get, all FedEx to get good paying jobs to get returning citizens. But if a person coming out of prison, and because of systemic racism, 82% are black or brown. It's insanity. I mean, it's a failing on everybody in America's part. We've all failed collectively. But within 2 months, if they have a job, they stay out of prison.
That is a fact. That is a fact.
8%. 8% if we can get them a job within 2 months. And if it's not within 5 years, that number is 75%. So we're spending $80 billion of your money, our money, everybody's money to incarcerate a country with 25% of the world's prisoners are in America. And we're 4.3% of the world's population. So you can see the systemic racism we have there. That's something that I've really worked on, and I'm frustrated. But the Bureau of Prisons, we got another opportunity now. We got new leadership. They're clearly listening. So we've been meeting with them, meeting with private employers, and all those ones I talked to, I've met with, and myself, and they all want to get involved. And we got to create what I call an opportunity pipeline
Yep.
of jobs that when you're incarcerated and you're leaving within 6 months, you get a job interview,
Yep.
you get an offer,
Hmm.
and then there's conditions. We finish training on the hard skills you need to take that job and the soft skills to reacclimate
Right.
a life outside of prison.
Right.
And that's my vision, hard
Yep.
and soft skill training while you're incarcerated.
Yep.
And the day you walk out, now
Hmm.
all you get is a bus ticket and good luck.
Yeah.
But I want to walk out with a job. And it's whether it's at JP Morgan, it's at FedEx, it's UPS, but it's a national program that when you leave a prison in Hagerstown, you may want to return to Seattle or you want to
Hmm.
return to Greensboro. And you have that job where you said you want to return to. So they know that. So you can return to where you want to be, start a new life. And that's how we're going to begin to address this. So that I would say would be a big challenge that I don't feel like I'm making the headway I want, but some things like new leadership at the BOP will be helpful. And I am getting just this week we had a bill that I put in to allow Medicaid
Hmm.
to continue when you're arrested. Did you
Yeah.
know you're arrested but not adjudicated?
Yeah. And that's
You
and
lose
that.
your Medicaid.
Yep, and that is very true. I know I have to say, I'm a big advocate of returning citizens, and I'm always like, if you ever need somebody to advocate, that's me because I have been working in that field for so long, and I have seen the broken systems, and I have met with employers, and I mean, I've even gotten judges on the board to say yes, we need to have this wraparound services put in place, and I know about that partnership with employers that H&S Bakery, Dietz and Watts, those are things that we had put in place to say, listen, these you're going to take our clients, these are returning citizens. I need you to hire them. And so in the Medicaid, they lose their Medicaid. And it's very disheartening when you, like you say, you give them a bus pass and you're out. And then but we have to have everybody included. It's so important that we all come to the table to make sure that all the dots are connected to and giving them that second chance. So I'm always an advocate for that, and I'm definitely going to be an advocate for that when testimonies and anything, because we have to make a change on that. So
Terrell,
I agree.
I really appreciate that. And to give you a sense of good news, and you don't get a lot of good news out of the Republican Party, but I took that bill to the floor just this week. I think it was Wednesday night. And the first person I asked was a sheriff from Jacksonville, Florida. And he looked at the bill and he looked at me and said, I've been hoping someone would do that one day.
Yep. Yep.
That is so abused. He says so many of people didn't ever get convicted,
Hmm.
never were, after they had due process and they lost all their rights, they lost their Medicaid, they couldn't continue with their mental health treatment and all the other things to keep them and their families in a good way. And immediately, member named Rutherford signed on the bill as a Republican, and he was so excited. I mean, he was like pumped up that he could be on that bill. So I think
Hmm.
there's some things where we can get things done, and we have to win this election. I mean,
Yeah.
you and I know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But if we do lose, and 25, 26 members have now retired, and that scares the hell out of me.
Yep. It's scary.
It is really scary.
Yeah.
Some of these were members that were in Republican districts, but won.
Hmm.
And now a new guy, a new gal, a new woman, a new man
Yep.
is going to have to run. And so, if we have to work across the aisle the next election, I work across the aisle now. I want to keep getting stuff done because I'm not here to waste my time to get
Exactly.
something done. And it's criminal justice, and it's mental health and it's addiction, being a voice, as Hubert Humphrey said, for those that are in the shadows, those that aren't being heard. And that's what I see. And that's why I ran for this job.
I'm glad. And so now let me ask you a question. So you talk about the work that you guys are doing in DC. We all know that January 6th was very Um, it was hard. It was hard. I know. I cried watching it. I mean, because I majored in politics, and politics is something different for me, right? Like that's something that my dad was public service. He was in the military, retired from the military. I was a military spouse, so this is really that was really it hurt me to the core to see that happening, and especially watching you guys go through that was just it was just a lot. Um, and we acknowledged it just this January 6th. Tell me in your own words, the Republican that did show up, how did you feel that only two were present that day to show their respects? And what should be done to domestic terrorists and the former leader that condoned this behavior?
Well, I support the Department of Justice and the January 6th committee. You saw a lot of good stuff out today on the charges filed against the Proud
Mm-hmm.
Boys,
Yep.
and all those things are steps. I had a meeting about 2 or 3 weeks ago with the head of the FBI that's involved in this investigation, and some of the stuff I can't speak about it directly,
Right. Right.
but and having spoken with him, heard what the DOJ has come out with recently, and the January 6th committee talking to members on that. I believe there's going to be very thorough investigation that's already happening, will continue to happen. We've had a lot of indictments, and we're going to have a lot more indictments. And if we can show through the emails and electronic trails that that President Trump is culpable, and certainly I believe he's culpable. I mean, he sat there and watched the TV for 3.5 hours when he was given plea after plea, even from the crazy people on Fox. Even those crazy people are saying, you've got to go on and stop this. So, we need to throw the book at everybody right to the very top that's involved and implicated here. And I mean, I was in the gallery that day. I never would have thought in a million years that, I'd hear people banging on the doors, literally, and being asked to put on our gas masks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had a gas mask on. We all were asked to put on our gas masks. They were under the chairs. They felt like that they were going to have to gas the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
And the only people in masks then would be the members and the police.
Mm-hmm.
And the Capitol Police and us would have the masks if they had to gas the entire chamber to stop the mob on Insurrection Day from coming in. And, the woman was killed, right in the well, the speaker's well that goes into the chamber. And if they hadn't been stopped there, the chamber would have been taken over.
Yeah, yeah.
We all evacuated. But, I never thought we'd live to see a day like Insurrection Day, where my staff, my people, ourselves, all of us were put at tremendous risk. And, they certainly would have been casualties. Capitol Police, really did heroic work trying to stop it. And what really ticks me off is your point that two people, recognized it. And every night now on MSNBC, which I watch a lot, we see the sign off where you hear McCarthy say what happened was wrong. And you hear McConnell say it, that it was wrong that day. And then immediately after that day, they began to lie and obfuscate and backtrack and cover for the evil man in Florida, who instigated January the 6th himself, when he literally tried a coup to take over our country. And thank God, Mike Pence, who we have nothing together in politics.
Right.
Zero. But the man stood up to immense pressure, from the president to do the wrong thing. And he did the right thing. And, bless him for that. And but we came, literally this close on Insurrection Day to a coup. And a year later now, they want to pretend like it never happened.
Like it never happened.
That's just bullshit.
Yeah.
We cannot allow that to stand. And thank God Liz Cheney and kids that are, that stood up because
Hmm.
nobody else had the courage. It's a sad day in America. What happened? Sad day.
And I'm so sorry that you had to experience something that's going to go in our children's history books. Like it's gonna be there. And I know my daughter's very involved in watching the news and the politics. And her view was like, that's not okay. She was not happy. She was very sad about that. And for a 9-year old to be like, if those were black people, they wouldn't even got that far. And so for her to acknowledge that at 9, she was just like, this is unacceptable. So you might see her in the White House one day. I don't know.
Well, I mean, she nailed it. She
Yeah,
absolutely nailed it.
yeah,
It would have been quite different. And,
right.
but uh, sad day in American democracy. And the people, the rest of the world can't believe they cannot believe that happened here in
Yeah,
America.
yeah.
Nobody can believe it.
Nope,
I can't
nope.
believe it that I was there.
Yeah. So now they have we just did a redistricting. I know a lot of candidates have talked about it, discussed it. How do you feel that's going to affect your campaign?
Well, my district didn't get a lot of changes.
Hmm.
It's always been a district that kind of made sense. It
Right.
follows the Potomac River, and it's got Western Maryland, which are 3 counties which are very Republican. And I spent a lot of time there representing them and on helping them on things like broadband, and that'll really make a difference for the people there. But at the end of the day, there were very few changes made to the district. So I'm thankful, for that. I think that across the country, gerrymandering is the problem that's resulted, in this lack of working together, because the Republicans have gerrymandered approximately 180 districts,
Mm-hmm.
and Democrats have gerrymandered, according to the literature, approximately 75 or 80 districts. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a Republican plot that Karl Rove started and led on. And we need to go to independent commissions that are truly independent all over the country, because it's limiting the ability to get, true people in Congress that realize that they have to serve everybody in their district, not just a few. And,
Mm-hmm.
the voters need to pick the members, not the members picking their voters.
Yep.
So
Yep.
gerrymandering is a tremendously bad thing that's really hurt, hurt America. And of course, now we see the Senate, which has become intransigent because the small states with their 2 senators and representing probably 30% of the population are blocking what the majority of the population would like to get accomplished. And the
So
filibuster, of course, has just made that so much more effective for those small states to block the good that needs to happen. And we can see that with Build Back Better.
mm-hmm.
I mean, I just love the Build Back Better bill.
Yep.
At 1.8 trillion, it could have been maybe 2 trillion, 3 trillion. And the things that were in it earlier on were awesome things to help change America. But at 1.8 trillion, that bill, the child tax credit alone,
Mm-hmm.
11% of
Mm-hmm.
America's children are in poverty.
Yep.
It's
Very sad.
disgraceful.
It's very sad. It's very sad.
Yeah.
And
And that,
I mean, and I mean, I don't know you if you remember, like you do remember back when we had educators and things like that. They used to come visit the homes of the kids, so you knew what was going on in the homes. We don't have that anymore. So I think people don't even realize how many homeless kids and kids living in poverty in Frederick that we really have, because we're in our own silos, and it's people like you, me, that need to fight for them. Like you said, the voices that are not heard, that can't be heard. And so it's really that's a good point that you made. Like that tax credit, it's sad, and so hopefully we can push forward and make some changes in that. Now we talked about COVID. You mentioned COVID a little bit, um, and we know the numbers are increasing. Uh, in the hospitals are being overflow. The doctors and nurses are tired. We have a lot of parents that have protested in front of school not to wear masks. We have parents that have protested, that let our kids stay home. This has been something that is about health has become very political, which is, I don't even know if that is even okay, if it makes sense. But I know that the minority population has been hit very hard. What is your plans to get ahead of the pandemic and to make sure our numbers decline and our residents are safe?
Well, I think, Carolyn, you nailed it. I think the most important thing is we have to acknowledge the facts. And the minority population has been devastated, and much more so than the white population. And it's 41% is the number of black-owned businesses that have dropped out of the businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So the ownership rate in black businesses is dramatically dropped, and it was already low. And the reason we have a lack of equity as far as on net worth is because black-owned businesses need the extra resources. They need to be able to get the ability to get the loans, and if they can't get the loans, they can't build their business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we need to do, is focus on minority-owned businesses, because they're phenomenal entrepreneurs. All of our minorities are great entrepreneurs, and that's where we build America, is through entrepreneurship, not investing more money in General Motors and the big businesses. They'll take care of themselves. And that again, of course, talks to the outrage that we can't raise the C Corp tax rate back up. Trump took that from 35% to 21%. Every 1% we raise that tax rate up on the big corporations, Google, Apple, Facebook, it's $100 billion, Carolyn, $100 billion that we could use for education. We could use for medical research. We could use loans to help let our minority businesses take out the loans to thrive and create new jobs and create new ideas and drive our immigrants in America who help create so many jobs also. But that tax rate is what is bankrupting America. We need to raise that rate up, and cinema will not tolerate that at all. That rate at 35%, we were competitive with the other G7 countries. I understand business inside out, and that rate should never, ever been lowered 1 percentage point. And Trump lowered from 35 to 21. That was $1.4 trillion right there on a 10-year run rate that should have been taxed and utilized for things like equality in our system, and that's educational equality, back on Build Back Better again, which got us pre-K for all 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and help parents not be wiped out by the child care costs, put a cap on that at 7%. So that number was, even bigger than the child tax credit number. It was $400 billion in that bill, Build Back Better. But these are the things that, in COVID here, we've let more inequity than we had them before. So what do we need to do? Well, we've got to get everybody safe, and that starts with testing. We've got a shortage now of test kits. Biden already put out 500 million. He's got another 500 million coming out, but we're going to need billions of more test kits to come out for Americans that are free, that we can test at home. We got to invest in antiviral pills. The new antiviral pills by Pfizer are 88% effective if you take them in the first couple of days. So we've got to spend the money to get these into our system, and both of these are in tremendous shortage right now. So our hospitals, and I talked to all 7 CEOs of the hospitals in my district last week, all 7 CEOs, all said the same thing. The unvaccinated are 80 to 85% of those in the hospital. They are destroying the finances of the hospitals, the unvaccinated. So we've got to get over that, as you said, the political divide. But we got to invest in testing. We got to invest in the antiviral pills from Pfizer. The Merck ones are only 30% effective. We need the Pfizer pills, and the government's got to get those out so you can get them at your local pharmacy, your Giant, and as soon as you feel the COVID coming on, we can take those pills. But it's caused, folks in our communities of color, as you know, and you pointed out in Frederick, all across our country to suffer disproportionately with higher death rates, higher business failures. So we've got to just keep on it and keep relentlessly on it.
And also the senior citizens. I mean, those are also the ones that are being hit, also the senior citizens. And we have a lot of senior homes in Frederick. So hopefully that we can making sure, I mean, those standing in those lines for 3 hours, we cannot expect our senior citizens to stand in line for 3 hours and 2 hours to be tested. So hopefully we have a plan in place that we can making sure that we get those tests out to them and getting vaccinated.
There's phenomenal tests now that you can get. And I just took a test on it last week. And we take the swab, I self-swab, then I take it on my iPhone, I can read it, and right there I'm tested in literally 5 minutes. And everybody has to have unlimited access to those tests in all of our country, and that's the federal government's job to get those out there.
Yes.
All over.
Yes.
And the antiviral pills.
Yes.
But, my son has COVID right now for the second time. He has no access to the antiviral pills, and they're 88% effective.
So you did answer some of my questions in our discussion. You did really good, actually. So we all know that Washington County is huge with the opiate addictions. Frederick, we have it too, but Washington County is hit hard. We have the opiate addictions behind the walls in prisons. We have them everywhere. And I know that's really passionate. You're really passionate about that. And congratulations with Nancy Pelosi that you were given that tab, that you were given that. And you might want to share it and tell people about that. I think you did. You pointed on a little bit about the task force. And Nancy Pelosi is a great person for doing that. And what do you, she's a good person anyways. So what are you planning on? How do you feel like, are you feeling like you're ahead of this? You're getting ahead of the opiate addictions, and what should we be doing more to get ahead of it?
Well, I think right now, as you know, I lost a nephew. He was 24. He died of a fentanyl overdose alone in a hotel room in Ashland, Carolina. He grew up right here in Montgomery County, Montgomery Village. And none of us, no family should be subjected to that. But we're not getting ahead right now. We're falling behind. We lost, as I said earlier, 100,000 folks. And we look at that number, but we don't think about it as brothers and sisters, moms and dads, cousins, coworkers, friends. We got to get names and that connectivity. The loss of 100,000 lives in America to overdoses. So, yes, we have the task force going, which I set up. I'm co-chair of that with 70-some bills on our opioid addiction and mental health task force. And then Speaker Pelosi, as you mentioned, appointed me to the Commission on Fentanyl, which stopping fentanyl across our borders, synthetic opioids. I'm co-chair of that with Senator Tom Cotton. So we have Republicans, bicameral, Democrats, and we have all 7 government agencies, from the intelligence community to DEA, to State Department, Treasury, Department of Defense, all part of this commission. And we're coming down to the finish of almost 2 years' work at the commission. I led a delegation of 16 people to Mexico City so we could into the border, so we could look into how we can stop the supply. And the news at the end of the day is not good. I mean, we are not going to stop the supply. The Mexican government is good people, but they have made the decision at the top levels from the President Obrador of Mexico that their mission is to coexist with the cartels. And he ran on a platform of, believe this or not, hugs, not bullets, regarding the cartels. Well, the cartels are behind two major cartels, $100 billion business that's all drugs to the United States, led by fentanyl now, which is the killer, mostly
Mm-hmm.
now in pill form. So they're fake oxy, and I want our listeners to know that when you buy a pill on the market that doesn't come from a pharmacist, and it looks like oxy, it looks like Percocet, it looks like Xanax, it could even look like Adderall, and you
Mm-hmm.
bought that on the market. These are being manufactured by the cartels, the two major cartels. They have pill presses, and they have a couple of drops of fentanyl in. You get
Mm-hmm.
2 milligrams of fentanyl. Over that, and you're dead. Well,
Mm-hmm.
the Mexicans cartels are not good at measurement.
Nope. They don't measure it. They don't. They don't measure it.
They don't measure at
No.
all, and
Nope.
they're killing their customers. And so, we're not going to stop the supply. So our
No.
report is going to focus on demand reduction,
And
how we can prevention,
I'm
treatment.
glad that you pointed that out because a lot of people are like, oh, we can stop it. But if you're being transparent, like we're not stopping this. Like this is going to continue, and they are not. Their hands are too reach too far for you to stop it, right? And you have major corporations supporting them. You have the police. You have law enforcement supporting. You have so this is something that can't be stopped, but it's something that could possibly be monitored and maintained, and finding ways just to keep people safe and making sure they're educated, like yourself, and you educating the public to say, listen, we can't make this stop, but we can do other things to negate the issues. And
Yeah,
so I want to ask you, we all know that Hagerstown is becoming a place where people live. Uh, and we have a lot of low income families and middle class families. And we all know David Trone has businesses. And I don't mean to be offensive, but you're one of the old white politicians that a lot of people will be like, okay, can he relate to us? I know my daughter lives in Hagerstown because she can't afford Frederick. How are you helping people in being relatable to their issues in home purchasing, being able to survive in Frederick is becoming more expensive. Washington County is a place where they're going now. And then Washington County is going to become expensive because why? The growth it just continues. So how do you tackle that? And what is your plan for that?
yeah, no, it's a great question. And everybody looks at kind of who you are today, but they don't realize and think about often who you are today is accumulation of what you have been and done in your entire life. And when I was 28, I was working for my father on a chicken farm with 55,000 chickens, 13 tons, Terrelin, of chicken manure a day.
They stink so bad. So good.
You go home at night and you take your clothes off because they stink too bad. You
Oh,
couldn't eat dinner. But we had 600 hogs, we had 200 acres. So I grew up on a real working farm. I worked over 100 hours a week, many, many weeks, week after week. And you know what you worked on those farms because you punched a time card
mm-hmm.
and you got $1.80 an hour
Yep.
until my dad found out that if you're a farm worker, he could pay us less and he cut us to $1.30. $1.30.
Cheap
So
labor.
it was free labor. He had four boys, four workers. So we learned to work hard. But my dad was a wonderful man, but he was also an alcoholic. And
Mm,
because of his alcoholism,
mm,
Dad, who I adore, made some bad calls, and we lost our farm. They
mm,
took the farm. They took our house, the house where I lived in till I was 28. The banks took everything, and I started over. And I went to grad school on student loans, just
mm.
like so many Americans, student loans, and began to figure out how to build a business because I'd always been self-employed. So I total bootstrap myself through smarting a very, very small business selling beer and soft drinks. And I had no credit. with a bank or anything. We couldn't get credit from a bank. So I figured out how to use the credit I got from Coca-Cola to sell Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola. And I used that credit to help pay for the beer. And we built the check stands out of 2x4s. I built the cooler out of sheets of plywood and 2x4s. We built everything ourselves. We had no money for a sign on the building, so we painted a sign just with paint. We put black letters on yellow. So, and it was a very dirty, low rent type business. And I had one good idea, and that was sell cheap. And I was always been a discounter. So what people don't know is you started with nothing and built that business slowly over 37 years ago. When I built my first store was 1984 in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, in a very tough part of town, a very difficult part of town because the rents were $3 a foot, and that's all we could afford. And you guaranteed every lease with your personal guarantee. I signed them, my wife signed them, and we built a business slowly over 37 years. And, I built a big business now that's got 12,000 team members across 27 states. So it has become a big business in the wine and spirit business and beer. But, when you start like that, and you know what it's like to be the cashier, to clean the bathrooms, to unload the trucks, and you know how hard it is to be successful, I think you learn to appreciate and relate to where you came from. And so my success in business is what drove me to politics. This is a way I can give back even more. We give back through our foundation to lots of things like the American Civil Liberties Union and, hundreds of other causes and literally all over the country. But by taking my time to help the federal government in those areas of addiction, criminal justice reform, and mental health, I think I can stand for those that no one else is standing for. Stand for those that don't have a lobbyist. They don't have a PAC. Nobody's got a PAC to stand up for returning citizens. No one else gives a damn. But, I was arrested 3 times early in my career. And I always tell folks I was vindicated because I was educated not to take a plea deal, and it was offered immediately. I was also had a few dollars to have attorneys to help me. In the end, I owed them 7 figures and couldn't pay them, but they stuck with me. And then later on, I paid them all back. But also, I'm white.
Yeah.
That gave me an unbelievable advantage in the criminal justice system in America.
Yeah.
And that's how I got with the ACLU. That's how I got in criminal justice. So I've walked in that. And when you've gone through being arrested and processed 3 different times, arrested your wife and arrested her to put leverage on you on bullshit, trumped up charges. But I beat it and won because of those 3 simple reasons. So I talk to criminal justice groups all the time about, I've been there. I've been fingerprinted. I've been mugshotted. I understand what it's like to go through this. And I came out the other end, and I, damn it, was fortunate. And now I need to give back and pay it back. And that's why we've, done so much in these areas, and why in Congress, that's what I care about. And so those are my areas in Congress. And there aren't many of us that are just into criminal justice, mental health, and addiction. The Speaker Pelosi knows it. She sees it. Steny Hoyer sees it. Chuck Schumer sees it. And I support Democratic candidates all over the country. And the lead guy supporting Democrats in the House and the Senate, every one of our frontliners I'm with. Financially, I do everything I can for them. Same in the Senate. Raphael Warnock from Atlanta, where we've seen all the tremendous voter rights problems. I mean, he and I are thick as thieves. He even hired my campaign manager to run his campaign. When we won. So we worked with senators and congressmen all over the United States. And of course, we supported President Biden, heavily. So we're trying to give back all we can. And you always know where you came from in life. If you don't, you're a fool.
Well, I am so, I could talk to you even longer, but I know we don't have time. And I know I'm very happy that you shared that personal story. That really meant a lot to me because I didn't know that about you. And I wish we had so much more time to talk because you did really well. And but tell me, why do you feel that residents of Frederick should vote for you and District 6 should vote for you in your reelection?
Yeah, no, I think that in Frederick and all around the county, the 5 counties, that I'm in, I think number one is they realize you're in this for the right reasons. I don't need a job. Frankly, between you and me, I love business. I'm good at it. I did it for 37 years, and I would prefer to do business every day of the week than politics. Every day
Mhm.
of the week, business was so much more fun and rewarding. But the big reward in politics, and half of what I do is almost wasted time, but you got to pay your dues. You got to put in the time. I got to be on the road to Frederick. I got to be on the road to Hagerstown, to Oakland. I put, the miles on, and I'm present. If you're present,
Mhm.
that's so important, I think. So, I connect with the struggles, and we have a great office that leads and is tied into our customers. We have an office in Frederick, one in Hagerstown, one up in Cumberland, one in Gate. No one's ever done that before. You want to be with the folks that are voting, and you want to listen. But at the end of the day, I always go back to what I call the 3 C's: compassion,
Mhm.
civility, and competence. And that's what I bring to this office: the compassion, to stand for those that are struggling in the shadows, as Humphrey talked about, in those 3 areas we focus, and, to feel, what we need to do to help them, the civility to work across the aisle. And if we don't work with civility, we can't get those 10 votes in the Senate right
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
I need Republican congressmen. And while we disagree on so many things, and they didn't stand up on January 6th, they haven't stood up at all.
Mhm.
They've,
Mhm.
they've they knew what happened, and they've told me what happened was, and the vote was legal and right. And then they voted to save their ass.
Mhm.
They voted the wrong way because they had no courage. And there's
Mhm.
been no courage there.
Mhm.
Zero, other than those 2 people you spoke about. No
Yep.
courage. But I
No
need
clue.
them on my bills because regardless of how disappointed I am and their complete lack of courage on so many things, I need them on my bills on mental health and criminal justice and addiction. And then I can get senators on the Republican side, folks like Portman from Ohio,
Mhm.
Cassidy from Louisiana. I can get Grassley sometimes. So I can get Joni Ernst on a few things, and people that we don't agree with on much, but we can find a little common ground, and then we get over the finish line. So think that, and of course, being on the Appropriations Committee, for Speaker Pelosi to put me on appropriations in my second term is spectacular.
Yep.
As the speaker said, David, it took me 5 terms till I got there.
Yep. This is a
Why
good
do you want
accomplishment.
to be there? I said, well, I'm not looking to die in my shoes in Congress. I want to work here, get some things done, and get the hell out. And do something else like business, which I loved.
Yeah.
But right now, this is the chance to give back. So I think for folks in Frederick, I'm here for the right reasons, and I'm a worker, man. That's
And so
I'm not necessarily the smartest guy in the room, but I'm always going to work the hardest. It's that
And I
simple.
thank you for that. And I have to say, you made 2 points that I'm going to close with. I was watching the news, and they said that some of the politicians that are retiring because of politics are no longer fun. And you said business is fun, but you don't get in politics for fun. You get in politics to do hard work. And that's what you did. You did hard work. And politics are not fun. But if you keep working hard and keep hitting that pavement, and doing what you need to do, you can speak for those people that do not voices are not heard, and fight for us, because that's what's important. And I do go into your office in Frederick, so it's a great location, and I thank you for giving us that. So I just hope to see you in the community, and in all your endeavors, and good luck on your campaign trail. and you have a wonderful team. So I think you'll do just fine, and you do great work. And you're right, Nancy Pelosi did say take her 5, but you did it in 2, so you're doing something right. So yeah.
And thank you for mentioning team, because team is so important. I'm just one person, you're one person.
Yeah,
It's all about the team around you. And we got awesome people on my
you
team.
do. You
And
do.
if we have the right leadership for that, we get so much more done.
Thank you. So, but thank you so much. You have a great night. Happy New Year to you and your family, and keep up the great work.
Thanks again, Carolyn, for having us on. Take
Of
care.
course.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.